Hi, everyone. My name is Scott Parazynski. I'm a physician, former NASA astronaut. I'm also an Everest climber and author of a best-selling book called The Sky Below. I'm also Chief Executive Officer and founder of Fluidity Technologies, as well as Chief Medical Officer and board member for Community Wellness, a really exciting healthcare company. Today on the show, we're going to talk about a lot of really wonderful things. Why is space good for the planet? What's the future of healthcare? I think it's going to involve remote surgeons. And finally, why is it important to shake the hands of your mechanic? Join us.
Welcome back to part 2 of our delicious conversation with astronaut, Everest climber, physician, pilot, inventor, and best-selling author and keynote speaker, best-selling author of The Sky Below, Dr. Scott Parazynski. In part 1 of the show, we talked a lot about why it's so important to be not just mission, but purpose-focused on your mission. We talked about how medical technology has changed, and a lot of it, not just medical technology, but a lot of technology, including your cell phones, the ability to do a Zoom call, the ability to even get your TV without a lot of hard cables, has all come to us because of what happened in space. We've talked about what leadership is today and really examining the importance of everybody in that circle and why it really matters. And that the implications of citizen astronauts and citizen space travel, citizen space organizations like SpaceX, like Blue Origin, etc., or Virgin Space, whatever it might be. And we're back with Scott because we want to jump into the application in a very practical sense. We talked about those advances that we've already got, but there are so many more advances. In the days of the Wright brothers, we could never have imagined a cell phone that actually, a lot of that has got to go to the technology that came out of space travel. So when we look at where we are today, which is so much further ahead than we were in the 60s, and we look at what that will mean for us here on Earth, maybe people who have no desire to do space travel. You and I were talking about some of the potential advances there. We talked about hydroponics. We talked about remote medical care. Let's go to the medical first, because that's your company. That's what you do. That's a lot of your inventions. We're talking about robot surgeons, which seems like, wow, I mean, that's really in the realm of seemingly science fiction. Walk us through a little bit of that, Scott.
Well, it's not science fiction. In fact, it's here and now today, and it's only going to get better. So we have a planet that's almost about to become entirely online. So to have rapid access to the internet gives us the capacity to communicate in ways that we've never had before. I've spent a lot of time in rural Nepal and very far away places in remote Africa that have never really had a power grid or wired phone service. But now they have solar, they have other forms of energy, they have access to the web. What that does is allows for specialists from other parts of the world to drop in, as we're doing on this call right here. We're talking to the planet, your viewership around the world. Some of your viewers may not even be on the grid for all we know.
That's true.
And so with that asset, we have the ability then to use AI enabled, empowered devices, but also with the skill of a remote operator to teleoperate a surgical instrument, to operate other types of robotic equipment, to telementor, to deliver training, in so many different unique ways to interact. So I see a future wherein tools like the technologies that we've developed at my company, Fluidity Technologies, where we would be able to have an expert surgeon here in Houston delivering the same quality care with the steerable catheter system or scope in sub-Saharan Africa as we have here in Houston, with tactile feedback, with low latency, to be essentially at the bedside doing this case. We have to have a skilled assistant there to introduce the technology into the patient. But once you're in the human body, I don't know if you ever saw the movie Fantastic Voyage. It was.
I did.
Yeah, great. Raquel Welch.
We're both showing our age.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That was Raquel Welch, wasn't it?
That was.
Oh my
very
God!
memorable. Yeah. But
yeah.
that's kind of the fantastic future that we have in front of us. And another company that I'm actively involved with, called Community Wellness, is using these Bluetooth-enabled sensor devices in the homes of seniors who have chronic illness, and we can track on a daily basis how they're doing with their healthcare. Are they being compliant with their medication? Are they taking a turn for the worse? Did they have a little bit too much salt in their diet? Is their blood pressure rising? Is their heart failure
too much
getting
sherry
worse?
after dinner?
Well, that might be a good thing. You never know. But
right.
But to be able to have multiple touch points along the calendar year, as opposed to just that one doctor visit for the checkup once a year, we can get way in advance of the progression of serious disease like cancer or heart failure or neurodegenerative diseases, and be able to maybe make a corrective action to prevent it from becoming a life-threatening situation. So these are really exciting times when we can bring healthcare to where patients are, whether in their homes or in remote clinics that wouldn't otherwise have access to the most skilled specialists. And it's going to open it up for the entire planet. It's not just for industrialized nations in urban settings, but even in very remote parts of the planet.
I think there's a paranoia, of course, about having all those cameras or monitors or the Internet of Things in my home, tracking everything I'm doing, and it's a wonderful idea and it's lovely technologically about what it can do. But if you put all that to the side for a minute, just this simple idea that somebody's out in a remote area of Africa, Sahara, wherever it might be, even in the northern, northern Canada or wherever it might be,
right,
with no access to main hospitals or doctors, and who could suddenly get onto a device that says, listen, here's what's going on, and can be guided. I mean, that's pretty amazing. That's a person who would die if we didn't have this technology. So what you're doing with your company is, I know you're doing the tele-mentoring of, tracking people's health and guiding them around that. But talk to us about I saw this, I think it was an ad, or maybe it was just an ad showing technology, but it was remote ambulance. And what that was with people who had cardiac arrest. Mm-hmm. And what it was a drone that, you press the beeper, somebody's having a cardiac arrest, press it, and a drone flies in. That drone is a small drone with very simple instructions that anybody can pull the thing off and bring the person back.
A defibrillator.
Yeah, sure. A defibrillator, but on a drone, and you don't have to be a highly trained individual. Is that a little? Is that further out? Is that active now? Is that what?
It's in trials in a variety of markets. Those things are in existence in certain markets. I don't know about the scalability of that, just because to get it to a patient within the golden 4 minutes, for resuscitation is very important. So, I think having those resources in community centers, probably makes sense, and to have hubs, would make sense. But even before you get to the point where you have a cardiac arrest, if we could tell you that you have through this company, Community Wellness, that I was talking about, warning signs for coronary artery disease, or hypertension or type 2 diabetes. If we can diagnose that and treat it early, we can prevent that crisis mode where you need the defibrillator or you need an emergency ride to the ER or you're going to die. Of course, we're all going to die. It's an inevitable sort of progression. But if we can expand life, but also improve the quality of life during it, that's a huge win. And by having multiple touch points across the length of a year, taking your vital signs and talking with a coach to work on health goals as we do, really makes an enormous difference. And I think it will become the standard of care where this sort of system will be a partner with your primary care physician. And when you do need to be seen, an example, a survey you take says, yes, my teeth bleed more easily when I brush my teeth. That might be a red flag that you might have a blood cancer, or it may just mean that you have gum disease. But you ought to be seen.
You haven't flossed in a couple of years.
There you go. Yeah. So but this might be an occasion for you to go see your doctor a little bit sooner than later. And I just think there's just such a great harmony between the technology and these teleoperated, telementored kinds of environments with improving the care that is given in our primary care facilities, in our hospitals. We're very inefficient with our healthcare dollars. We spend so much money on the last month of life, and if we were just to spend a quarter of that a quarter of those dollars on preventative care and remote patient monitoring, and assuring that people actually take their medicines. Only 45% of senior citizens actually take the medicines that are prescribed to them. If we could even address that problem, we would see such great gains in longevity and quality of life.
But the other thing is that we have to address that the medical system itself is a problem, and that's it's a very good point, because I can give you an example that for me was quite profound. During the pandemic, but not when things were crazy, just towards the end, or to the end of the craziness and everybody being locked up. A young man I know, I've known him since he was 6. He was 33. Wakes up with a pain in his jaw. Thinks he's got toothache. Takes a couple of Advil. It doesn't really go away, but it eases off. Okay. Later that night, it gets very severe. So he decides to go to the hospital. He goes to the hospital, tells the people in the hospital, I've got a problem with my jaw. Meanwhile, people are bleeding, and, if it bleeds, it leads. And he's just holding his jaw. So they say, well, it's going to be about a 5-hour wait. And he says, okay, well, I can't stand it, so I'm going to go out. And he goes outside, and he goes for a walk in the park and drops dead because he had a massive heart problem. And I always, when I was thinking about technology, I think, if there was the Internet of Things more accessible, would that system have picked up that was what was really going on? That this was a heart issue, and that the jaw was a problem, that it was actually a warning sign that's not a typical. We usually think of like grabbing your chest or whatever it might be.
Or the left arm or something.
Your arm going numb or something.
Yeah.
But that is also a symptom that I didn't even know about until after that. And I was like, wow, okay. And clearly the medical system was not paying attention, because he went in the hospital and told them, I got a pain in my jaw. Like, well, that's a warning sign. But they just went, oh, you got toothache, So with the technology, would that have been picked up? Would we, are you seeing that?
I think ultimately, yes. And the reason I say that is because we have these powerful machine learning and deep learning AI tools that can be applied to huge data sets like this. And so what we're doing at Community Wellness is not only gathering vital signs data and coaching notes, but we're also gaining contextual information on their symptomatology. how are you doing today? Are you having any pains, any shortness of breath, any swelling in your legs, any nausea, vomiting? And so by training these engines, yes, and also by assessing interval change. That's the most important thing. Your friend, your 33-year-old friend, was probably healthy as a horse, but maybe, you know, towards the last couple of weeks, there was a change in his vital signs or some other constitutional thing that would have been picked up. And yes, it very well could be that these types of tools would.
Yeah, because allopathic medicine seems to me, and you're a doctor, I'm not, so please excuse my ignorance, but it seems to me to be allopathic medicine a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of times seems to be reactive. So you're having this symptom, here's this pill. Reactive, pharmacological, and about extending life, not extending quality of life. Yes. What I wonder is the technology extending life again? Geez, you know, a lot of people are like, please check me out, I'm done. You know, and I think that that's part of the systemic problem. But also, like I said, with with Raj, you know, there would have been a beeper or something that would go off to him and say, you know what, you don't know, but you're having heart challenges. Get yourself to the hospital, and he can show that monitor, and they go, okay, right, into the ER now, or whatever it is, you know, and even though you don't think you're having a heart attack, you're having a heart attack, because people drop dead all the time with no, quote, symptomology that is recognizable to them.
Right. It's not seen in our in ways in which we can interpret it. But right, yes, our bodies are providing enormous amounts of data all the time, and especially through these sensors, and being able to measure interval change, as I described it. And seeing when those inflection points change. Something is different. We need to investigate this. We can make important discoveries. The other aspect, I think, of the future of medicine is that with big data analytics, we can actually take a more holistic view of a patient. You know, a cardiologist will look at your heart, but he or she may miss the fact that you have an ulcer, right, or rheumatoid arthritis. So medicine has become very siloed as well. We talked about the problems with silos in organizations earlier, but we need to take a holistic view, and I think with tools like this, we have the ability to ingest a whole holistic view of a patient and apply many different types of algorithms to sleuthing out if there's a incipient problem.
We've become a very niche, specialized world. Everybody's got their niche. Everybody's specialized. But for me, I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about everybody else. For me, I want a polymathic experience with my medical provider, right? Somebody who's studied every possible interaction of, so yeah, I want you to have studied homeopathy. I want you to have studied naturopathy. I want you to know these things, because you're likely to pick up things, as you said, that could be certainly false alarms, false indicators, but also that are undercurrents that are leading to a major event that would get missed by a specialist. I respect the specialist.
There are certain, unique individuals who can have that, polymath, enormous fund of knowledge. But actually, I think young physicians in particular, are becoming more and more dependent upon, this peripheral brain,
right,
which is, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the practice of medicine has changed so much in the scope of knowledge that a person would have to master is almost beyond human ability at this point. However, we have the ability now to ingest data, to
Exactly.
resource all the medical literature and make the best decisions. And I hate to forecast the downfall of traditional medicine, but I think machines will be a very significant adjunct to the clinical diagnostics in the future. I think machines will one day surpass the best diagnostic physicians.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying about a polymathic response, is that the technology can do that. The technology can absorb enormous amounts of data and access it very, very fast, like insanely fast for us, that it doesn't require you to be a polymath. It requires you to have access to the polymath at a very fast process. So, so you've got the knowledge of the cardiac specialist, but you've also got the knowledge of the liver specialist at the same moment, and saying, oh, this is symptomatic of that and that and that. And there's an equation that evolves that would never have been seen simply by a specialist. And I'm, again, there's no criticism here. I just don't know that it's possible to do all that on your own. And this is where I see the advances and the benefits of the technologies that you and your company and people like you are doing to bring that to us, right? It's accessibility.
Indeed. And I think, the family practitioners not going away. We're still going to have them, but they will be managers of data and resources. I think having that human filter applied on top of all of this to decide from all these different options, what's most likely. There'll still be a human in the loop for the foreseeable future, and of course, in the actual performance of procedures and things of that nature. But it's an exciting time. I think ultimately we're going to be able to provide not only better care at lower cost with less pain and better outcomes. We're just kind of in an awkward time right now, certainly in this country, in the United States, where we're still doing what I call shotgun medicine, protective medicine, because of fear of, be it lawsuits or what have you, and not being strategic,
right,
in many cases.
Now, everything we've talked around here has been around this advancement. And when we talk about that, let's flip it back into the context of leadership, because as an astronaut, there is a very clear line of command. There is a very clear, Houston giving direction, and then, everybody's following in line, and where your place is. The world has changed dramatically from that in the hierarchy of power in the corporate world. When I think about that, and I think about how many leaders struggle with succession, whether stepping down or handing power over, or, a lot of times when I'm working with multi-generational family business, they'll say, I don't think the people, the person I'm going to hand over to is prepared. And I'll say, well, what's prepared? And they don't really know. And prepared means what I've discovered through eliciting the questions that I need is prepared means you're not me. Well, they're never going to be you. And you're not going to operate the way I operated because it's a different time. Talk to us about when we need to step into power, when that's handed to us. How do we, what do you see as the best prep for that? Because as an astronaut, you must have been trained for that. That the feces hits the fan, you got to step up. Now what?
It certainly takes on a different complexion when there's immediate life threat involved. So it's a different kind of mindset. But the training that I received at NASA actually converts so beautifully into corporate life as well. And what I've found in leading teams, I just harken back to my days at NASA, where it isn't the the traditional commander and follower kind of architecture anymore. In fact, even when we were flying, my last flight on STS-120, we had an amazing commander, Pam Melroy, for the flight, but she had this structure for us that really emphasized situationally appropriate leadership. And what that means is, I might have been responsible for leading the spacewalking team. She was responsible for the overall safety and success of the mission. There's a flight director in Houston who's overall responsible for everything. He was the CEO, so to speak, of the entire mission. But it might have been the rookie on the flight or someone in the back room of mission control who had that situational awareness, that hair raised on the back of their neck that says, something is wrong here. I have the ability, I have the confidence to raise my hand and say something is wrong, and they would do it. And that's how we trained. We did our simulations in that fashion. Yes, there was on paper a hierarchy and a reporting structure, but there was mutual respect for everyone on the team, and also an active listening on the part of the leaders. So I talk about it in my book. Actually, one of the best life lessons I ever had, where I was leading a team and I was told that, hey, very politely, it wasn't said exactly the same way, but you need to shut up more. You need to listen to everyone around the table, and even think about being the last one to speak. Be the old grizzled graybeard, but be the last one to speak. You can help break ties and ask questions and things of that nature, but by soliciting inputs from the person who doesn't usually speak, maybe the youngest person who doesn't have the confidence to do so, you oftentimes come up with the most brilliant solutions, or something that you really needed to be considered. So that's what I took from my NASA experience that I try to bring to my corporate life as well.
Well, I think that's the reason they being corporations, bring in people like you and me, is because we don't work there. We have the objectivity that it's not possible to have on the inside at the top. Even though you think you know everything, there's a good chance that the janitor saw something you didn't, right? You know, and that's really important. But that situational leadership, I think, is such a profound lesson for all of us. And there's a wonderful, wonderful story about that. That is that during the Cold War between America and Russia, there was a fault in the system, in the Russian system, that made it look like the US had launched nuclear weapons at Russia. And the guy who was just a worker guy, I mean, not a major general, right, who saw this, had, I think it was like 90 seconds to respond, and chose not to, chose to say, I trust that it's a false alarm. Or else he would have, he could have just pushed the button and launched a nuclear war. And we would have, and I mean, beyond anything we'd ever imagined, you know, nuclear war that would have created a nuclear winter for 200 years, probably killed out, you know, 95% of the population of the planet. He didn't, because he had situational leadership. Wow. And I think that your people, as you listen to this, remembering that your people, you have to trust that your people can do that, and that it won't always be right, but there's a pretty good chance that it will mostly be right. And a lot of the thing you're flying 30,000 foot above, you miss. They don't. They're on the ground with.
Exactly right. Great story. I that's chilling to think that we came that close.
Yep. Yep. That's indeed. So, Scott, we're already out of time. It's been a pleasure. We didn't get to talk about China. We didn't get to talk about stratospheric travel. How you had mentioned how long it would take to fly from London to Japan. How long did you say?
40 to 50 minutes. It would be sort of like Virgin Galactic's spacecraft, where you're lofted to the 45 to 55,000 feet, and then a rocket would take you up a little bit higher, and you would kind of skip along the top of the atmosphere. And then when it's time to land over Narita, you would punch through the atmosphere and touch on down. So that sounds like science fiction, but people are actually thinking about these problems right now.
Well, I want people to know that, as you know, Scott, I came to North America from Australia, and I moved here in '88, and I lived in Australia all of the '80s, up until that point. And in '84, they were building a stratosphere airport in east coastal Australia then. Wow. They were like building an airport. So building a landing strip for planes that would travel outside Australia in the '80s. That's
future forward thinking. Good for them.
Forward thinking. And most people don't even know that, right? But, Australia, what people don't know, is often a testing ground for technology. It was the first country to a Western country. It was used as the testing ground for cast machines, right? So lots of those technologies start there. Right? Like, let's test it on the Aussies. Yeah, a bit tricky, but but that technology has been known about for a long time, but it seems so futuristic to us. And the reason I bring it up is because the prep was done in the '80s. We're in the 2020s here. That's 40 years later. We don't have it, but you can tell by that the technology has already been ready. There's some things that are just not in place yet. And, and we're seeing that with hover trains and all those kinds of things. Because I remember cold fusion, which most people are like, what the hell is that? Right. But that was the new innovation. And now we're like, okay, it's all just like, it's so close.
We live in exciting times. There obviously things that we need to be concerned about and maybe even afraid for. But these are also very exciting times, being in technology, being in healthcare, in aerospace. I'm thrilled to be able to contribute and to see what happens next. It's going to be a great ride.
Very exciting. So Scott, I really want to thank you for being with us. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Always is a pleasure and honor talking to you, my friend. Always an honor. And before we go, of course, I want to make sure that everybody knows how they can find out more about you, your book, your resources. So again, if you just let everybody know that would be great.
Sure. Well, again, it's always a delight to spend time with you, Dov, and I hope we get a chance to do it again. My website is parazynski.com. And if you want to find me on social media, Instagram or Twitter, or what have you, it's at AstroDocScott. And my book is called The Sky Below, and it's available on Amazon, Audible, the places where you might look to find books. So I hope you get a chance to check it out.
Well, again, thank you so much, Scott. Again, to you, dear listener, remember that we'll post all those links, including to the book, inside the show notes. And remember, you can hang out with other conscious leaders. You can chat about this episode or any of our past episodes inside of our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. Just look for the Leadership and Loyalty podcast. We have some big news coming up later this year. Keep your ears open. There's some pretty cool things happening with this podcast and what we're about to do. What I do want you to remember is it doesn't matter how successful you are. If your employees and your customers don't understand what gives your company meaning, you're only working at a fraction of your true capability. To find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or leadership strategist for yourself or your organization, simply go to dovbaron.com, because unified actualized meaning is the one single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about how technology is right around the corner. You don't need to be afraid of it. You need to be aware of it. There's a great deal of difference that we, as Scott said, we live in an amazing time where many of the things that we take for granted come from space travel, come from the technology that was used for that. And where we're going is just beyond the horizon. I'm Dov Barron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.